Hello from the distance, as Miss Jandon has rightfully been calling it. I would like to welcome you to my senior seminar presentation for graphic design. I have titled my presentation, Design is My Ministry. This presentation will not only showcase my development as a graphic designer, it will also take you through my journey at Spring Hill College and how I discovered my vocation, my calling, my ministry. I believe the proper way to begin any story is to start at the beginning. I have just a few things from my childhood that I would like to share with you. They have been the driving forces behind who I am and who I'm still becoming. I was raised in church by semi-strict parents. My mom was also the children's pastor and still is to this day. She's also been a teacher for over 25 years. I have precious memories of cousins, neighbors, friends of friends, and many other kids who spent their summers at our house. My mom would tutor everyone in math and reading. She even let me become a tutor at an early age. But most importantly, we played outdoors. We made mud pies and cakes, as you can see in the picture, and truly, I had a wonderful childhood. But going back to church for just a minute, I grew up loving the things of God and also loving being in church. I established early on a love for service and for children. Really my entire lifetime, I've served my family's church in several different ways. I learned how to do puppets at an early age. I've helped in kids' crusades in many cities, states, and even out of the country. I'm a professional snack hander outer. I've taken photos of many events for many years. I've taught our 3 to 6 year olds on Sunday nights for the last few years. I redesigned and still help keep up to date our website. I've also been a greeter, a nursery worker, a chair putter-upper, and really anything else. I've learned many life lessons and skills through being part of a church community. And at age 13, I knew that ministry was going to be part of my life. I was not sure what form the ministry would take, but I was willing to wait and listen to what I've discovered as the still small voice of God. I would like to now shift this presentation to both my journey to the Hill and on the Hill. During my senior year of high school, I was interested in pursuing a degree that would help me get into law school. Along with the influence of one of my high school teachers, this led me to apply to schools like Sanford and Spring Hill. After my visit to the University of Mobile, I was actually set on going there and was planning to try out for the volleyball team. Yet, all of this changed with one letter. I'd reached out to the basketball program at SHC early on during my senior year. Coach McConaughey from Spring Hill got back to me and was interested in letting me play for her. That did it. My decision was made for me. If I'm being completely honest, my main goal in choosing a college was to be able to play either volleyball or basketball. You see, I started playing sports for the YMCA soccer league at age 5. Since then, sports have just simply filled my life. I started playing basketball at 3rd grade and volleyball in the 6th. Coach McConaughey gave me the opportunity to fulfill my dreams to play college basketball. I then started at Spring Hill in the fall of 2015. And from the very first classes I took, I knew I had made the right decision. From here, we're going to shift to my journey on the Hill, discussing why I stopped playing basketball, how I fell into graphic design, and how I eventually discovered my vocation as a 5th-year senior on the way out. My very first semester on the Hill, I was declared undecided in order to determine which degree would best fit a track for law school. I was in all core classes. This was where I fell into my art credit, Introduction to Computer Graphics with Rachel. It was actually both of our first semesters at Spring Hill. This class really broadened my view of what art and design looked like in the real world. Art had always been an interest and a hobby of mine, but it was nothing I was ever serious about. I doodled in every notebook, had multiple different styles of handwriting. I loved to take pictures and even enjoyed painting from time to time. I had a brief introduction to graphic design in my BTA class, but I didn't know that that was graphic design. I was certified in Microsoft Office. We even got to create a company brand equipped with a logo, color scheme, and website. We even got to design our personal websites, as you see here. Yet, it was not until Art 208 in fall of 2015 that I saw a potential career in this field. My work from this class speaks to me being a design baby. The Decades Diner project you see here was a fun design. I love that this was my first logo and brochure design because it was something I could envision coming true. While I was working on it, I could see myself opening up this restaurant. Through the design, I could feel the layout of the chairs and tables, the sounds of the music, and I wanted everything to look a certain way for the audience. Little did I know my imagination and my thought process seen in this early project would be the foundation of how I work even today. I like how Michael Barut put it. If I can't get excited about whatever that something else is, I really have trouble doing good work as a designer. To me, the conclusion is inescapable. The more things you're interested in, the better your work will be. What this quote means to me is that I am in the perfect career as a graphic designer. I've always had many hobbies and many likes. With design, I get to touch it all. Rachel has spoken of this very thing many times throughout the last 5 years. Moving forward, though, I was still unsure of what I really wanted to be. I did not know if graphic design was going to be a really cool hobby of mine, or if I would pursue a career out of it. I can also say that my family was very unsure of me obtaining an art degree, and that made me even more cautious of my decisions. Throughout the remainder of my freshman year, I did not take any more art or design classes. I played my freshman year as a JV women's basketball player, and we lost every game. It was absolutely devastating for someone as competitive as myself, and also for someone who truly just loved the game of basketball. There were many issues during this year, and I was growing to hate the game. I got to the point where I was so anxious about just going to practice during off season. Then during the summer before my sophomore year, my family found out that my grandfather had cancer. I was already not thrilled about returning to play, and this made the situation even more difficult. I went to the coaching staff and explained that I simply could not give them my 100%, and it was unfair to them and to my teammates for me to try to play through that. I stopped playing basketball. I quit. It was one of the hardest decisions of my life. I hung up my shoes as an 0-10 starter for the JV women's basketball team at Spring Hill College. I was honestly very embarrassed to quit. I don't think I've ever quit anything before in my life, but I knew it was the direction that God was leading me. That fall, I took the next of my art and design classes. I was in Drawing 1 and Typography. The project that stood out the most in my development during this semester was the poetry book we did for the Boys and Girls Club. I really felt that my other projects during this time spoke to what was going on in both my mind and my family. I was devastated and embarrassed about not playing basketball anymore. I was also very worried about my grandfather and the toll that the cancer and the surgeries that had been taken on my family. Yet this poetry project let me give back. It let me serve some children. I was so excited to work on their artwork and their poems. In hindsight, and in a trend you will soon see, our class service projects with nonprofits were where my heart was and where it has stayed. I still had not declared a major in my sophomore year, but I knew graphic design was going to be a piece of the puzzle. I finished out my sophomore year taking History of Graphic Design and 2D Design. In the fall of 2017, I was a secondary education/history major with a minor in graphic design. I was taking my first education classes in hopes to become a teacher as well as in Graphic Design 1. In Graphic Design 1, I met Miss Dreaden. I can pinpoint this class as a significant moment in my design journey. I can see in my work that I was more comfortable in the Adobe Creative Cloud than I'd ever been. I was making projects that I really liked. I loved getting to brand myself for the first time. I chose to incorporate all three of my initials, L, E, and D, in my lettermark, and it was successful for where I was at the time. I chose the color seafoam green because it had been a very special part of my life's journey. I was a Mobile Azalea trail maid during my senior year of high school, and my room, of course, turned into all shades of seafoam green. Since Graphic Design 1, I have actually updated my lettermark. I've made it more modern and definitely more bold since then. I feel this reflects my growing confidence in both design and who I was becoming. It has become my signature. I'm still using the seafoam green, but I also added the Spring Hill purple. The deep and rich purples have always been part of my favorites ever since middle school, and I just so happened to attend a college where we purple up. Graphic Design 1 was also a class where I became more comfortable in Adobe Illustrator. I took this sketch of a turtle and turned it into a vector. This class was where I first started doing this process. The different turtles represented the various color contrast in Itten's theory. I've also gone back to this project since then. While it was initially the poster to simply display the color contrast, I also used it to show how some projects can be turned into new materials. This is something I've grown to love about graphic design. Any project can be turned into something else entirely if it fits the purpose. In Graphic Design 2, my process was tested when we worked on the Homecoming on the Hill project. I realized then that my design process could produce what felt like hundreds of different options for a single project. I created multiple different variations for a logo for Homecoming on the Hill. Through this, I learned that I do not need to spend multiple hours working on finished variations before the client even makes the decisions about thumbnail sketches. While I know I spent too much time on the many different variations, it really helped me finesse my design process. I learned where time is best spent in the process, and I guess you could say that hard work does pay off in this case, because my design was chosen for that year's design. My professors have stressed time and time again that working with clients is not so much about the competition of whose work will get picked, but about learning how to work with clients. I absolutely love this about our program, but it also felt really good to be chosen. It boosts your confidence in your work. It's something I can still look back on and have the t-shirt. After Graphic Design 2, I changed my majors again. This time I changed to what would be the final of my major exploration. I would be a double major in history and graphic design. While I knew teaching would be in my future, I also knew that I did not absolutely have to have an education degree from Spring Hill to do that. I also knew I was planning to apply for master's programs after graduating. In the following year, what I refer to as my first senior year of college, I took modern art, painting, media studies, visual communication, color theory, figure drawing, motion graphics, and website development. This was a lot of fine art and graphic design courses in a year span. During this year, I also focused and was in my history seminar. In hindsight, my spring art and design classes from that year took a real back burner to my seminar presentation and paper. I pray it was for good reason. I also learned so much in my media and visual communication classes. I feel it was like I took a step back from the creating part of graphic design to understand some of the history behind what we do and why we do it. I learned new skills and mindsets to take on while I was designing. This was showcased in my design work from here on out. I also really fed into my creative energy in classes like color theory in my first senior year. Color theory, I would argue, brought out some of my best work. I have mentioned my love for playing the game of basketball, but I've also been a coach during my college years. I'm an avid Duke Blue Devils fan, and I love watching my favorite players in the NBA. One project in color theory gave me the opportunity to incorporate basketball into my design work. I studied the colors of the NBA teams and used op art, which is like an optical illusion in some instances, to showcase an infographic of the teams with their colors. As you can see, it is very vivid and full of all the energy that the NBA brings. I've used this piece to design t-shirts, posters, motion graphics, and even pop socket designs. Along with this portfolio piece, as our professors call it, I also have an unfinished project from color theory. I did intensive research on the colors that are used in school classrooms and buildings. I looked at how colors have been proven to help kids stay focused longer, how some colors are joined with certain subjects, and even how what's on the teacher's walls directly affects how kids concentrate. This was all great information that I wanted to communicate effectively, but I had way too much information. I was trying to fit every ounce of information into this one project, and in my opinion, it turned out unsuccessful. It is a project that I will eventually look at with fresh eyes. I believe if it is easily communicated to teachers and administrators, it could really benefit the school systems as a whole. Now, let's go to what I have grown to love and respect, my 5th year on the Hill. The summer before my 5th year, I was very nervous and honestly a little ashamed to be a 5th year student. I've always strived for excellence in all that I do. I go back to a verse in the Bible when I think about this. Colossians 3:23 through 24 says, "Whatever you do, whatever your task may be, work from the soul. That is, put in your very best effort as something done for the Lord and not for men, knowing with all certainty that it is from the Lord, not for men, that you will receive the inheritance, which is your greatest reward. It is the Lord Christ whom you actually serve." This verse has been ingrained into the very deepest parts of me. I knew that whatever I put my hands to, I was doing it for God's kingdom. This is why I felt I'd failed as a college student. But having said that, I now know that this year was my godsend. My family has faced several surgeries, cancer, unforeseen deaths, and even more during this past year. I know without a shadow of a doubt that I was supposed to be here in Mobile, close to home for my family, if nothing else, during my 5th year. But my 5th year also brought clarity in my vocation, my purpose in life. I was able to take Discovering Vocation with Dodsworth, The Pursuit of Happiness with Father Michael, Media Planning and Measurement with Stacy, Graphic Design Through with Miss Dreaden, and I also did an internship as a graphic designer for Fountain of Life Church in Saraland. My favorite project from Graphic Design 3 was another community-based one with the Alabama Art Educators Association. I really loved my concept of using a pencil to connect all art teachers from elementary school to adults. I believe that it all begins with a pencil. This is a project that I created more than one final delivery for the client. Something Ms. Dreaden has really pushed us to, especially in the last years, is to advance as many ideas as you can to a final product. It both challenges you as a creative and it lets your client know that you are invested in the project. And really, who doesn't like options? I also feel I can resurface some of these ideas, fonts, colors, for the use of other projects. Toward the end of my fall semester, Fountain of Life Church actually hired me on as a part-time graphic designer. I was given a variety of tasks all the while, ranging from website redesign, as you see in the picture, to redoing and cleaning up a variety of logos, even to weekly graphics and in-house printing for many events. This internship turned job has been one of the greatest learning experiences, both as a graphic designer and as someone who is called into the ministry. This staff took me in and made me feel like I was one of their own from the very beginning. They let me learn from them. I know this was one piece of clarity I got out of my 5th year. It has assured me of both my call to ministry and seeing design as my ministry. In this crazy whirlwind of my last semester, I am finishing up my seminar, illustration, branding, and history classes. Illustration with Miss Jandon and branding with Rachel have been the best way I could choose to end my last semester on the Hill. Both classes have been filled with fun projects and new skills. In branding, we worked in groups for a project that combines two of my interests, working with nonprofits and working on a project that was steeped in history. We worked on a project with one of the organizations that is involved with the community of Africatown. We were tasked to create a cohesive brand identity for a competition. My favorite piece from my group was our choice in the icon designs. We chose to use African symbolism to showcase the many different locations. Each symbol's meaning has a purpose to the location. For example, the water transit system was labeled with the symbol you see on the right. It means endurance and resourcefulness. As I near the end of this presentation, I would now like to shift gears to speak about my independent project. From the very first day I stepped on campus, during my senior year of high school, the Foley Center has made a huge impact on my life. I have participated in many different service learning opportunities in the past 5 years. I've been a tutor at Chastain Middle School, Wilmer Hall, and Most Pure Heart of Mary. I have interned with the Fellowship in Civic Leadership for 2 years. And then for the past 2 years, I have actually taught English as a secondary or other language. The Foley Center, Dr. Orange, Dr. Eric, Buffy, and Kristen all play a very special role to me and my story on the Hill. In September of 19, Dr. Eric and I initially met about a Foley Center rebrand. It was not until senior seminar that we met again about it and its potential to be my independent project. Dr. Eric, myself, and the Foley Center's intern met a few times to get initial ideas, thoughts, and tasks for the project. We determined that my goal was to provide the Albert S. Foley Community Service Center a cohesive brand identity that encompasses all programs and aids the students at Spring Hill College in understanding the purpose and the goals of the Foley Center. We wanted to keep in mind that our audience was primarily student-centered. The task list was a logo, infographics or icons to match the statistics, program brochures, posters, signage, table designs, and ideas for events like Badger Expo and Exposure Days, a t-shirt design, social media and brand guidelines, as well as a template for PowerPoint presentations. Considering the time crunch that is already a spring semester, and then the pandemic outbreak, I chose to focus in on a smaller list. Yet this is something I hope to continue to work on throughout the summer. I would like to now show where we are with the project. We will first look at all the process I took in designing the logo. I did much logo exploration with the letters FC throughout the past few months. I think in every notebook I have right now, you can find something that looks similar to what you see in this picture. I wanted to create a clean and modern mark that would both eliminate the Foley Center's connection to Spring Hill, as well as the connection to the Jesuit ideas and principles that guide our program. Father Foley was quoted in saying, "People are our textbooks," and Dr. Eric has rightly added, "The community is our classroom." These are the logos that I initially showed to Dr. Eric to get a feel for his feedback. He pointed out that the one on the left reminded him of Dwell Mobile's logo. Also, he felt the bright yellow and purple reminded him of Planet Fitness. He suggested using a golden yellow in the second logo and to finesse the sun. Here's where we are now with the logo. The Spring Hill purple is used alongside the golden yellow. One thing that I felt this logo showcased was that the Foley Center and Spring Hill are working alongside the sun. I believe the sun represents our Jesuit identity, our community partnerships, and the people we serve. They are who make the Foley Center shine. We are not above nor below them, but we stand side by side in solidarity with each other. Dr. Eric also pointed out, and I really like this, was that it's like the Foley Center is being a light to the community through this logo. Here is where I've started showing how the logo can be used. I've learned the importance of placing restrictions on the logo, primarily by seeing how so many brands and companies do not do that. The logo guidelines will eventually be included in the branding guidelines. I've also explored what the Foley Center's social media would look like with this brand in place. The logo translates well, in my opinion, because it's successful in both the square and circular sizes that social media platforms use. The logo elements are also very successful in completing the branding of the many programs Spring Hill has to offer. It keeps a uniformity to the programs as well as making them different. I'm so honored that Dr. Eric let me work on this for my independent project. I feel like it has been the best way for me to really leave my mark on the hill after I'm gone. To conclude this presentation, I would first just genuinely like to thank you for listening. I know this has been an unprecedented approach to a graphic design senior seminar. I truly appreciate all of you taking the time out of your lives right now to watch my presentation. While I'm sure of my exact next step, I'm confident that this program and this school has set me up for success. I've applied to a few grad schools, and I've also started applying to a few jobs in the local area. Spring Hill and all that it encompasses in my life's journey will forever hold a special place in my heart. See you soon.